And welcome back here on The Full View. I mentioned earlier on that we are in discussion with the ANC Secretary General, Mr. Ace Magashule, speaking to us about a number of issues. A very good evening, Mr. Magashule, and welcome. I believe that there's quite a lot to comment on, mainly the issue of retrenchments, what many have said is a bloodbath for our economic trajectory. So I believe that you have a short statement that the ANC is putting out.
Yeah, it's a very short statement, so if you allow me to read it, I think good evening to the viewers and good evening to you and all the fathers in South Africa today, because it's what is known as Father's Day. I hope you had a wonderful day, and let me read this short statement. The African National Congress, the foremost liberation movement in South Africa, and the leader of society, is painfully aware of the deepening challenges of poverty, inequalities, unemployment, racism, and gender-based violence. It rests on our shoulders to make sure, as the governing party and as all South Africans, a need for us to address these issues. We as South Africans, black and white, must ensure the radical transformation of our socio-economic conditions in order to bring to an end the suffering of our people and fundamental transformation of our economy to empower our people. It certainly can no longer be business as usual. And with this reality in mind, the ANC concurs with what the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, Comrade Blayton Nzimande, said yesterday, that the threatening massive retrenchments in the country are entirely unacceptable, and resultant job losses from retrenchments will only deepen the suffering of our people. And on this day known to many South Africans as Father's Day, we must remember that those who are facing the threat of losing their jobs are fathers, husbands, mothers, brothers, and sisters who have the responsibilities on their shoulders of having to take care of their vulnerable children and other loved ones. Nothing can be more cruel and heartless than to plunge workers into the depths of despair of not being able to provide for their children and to see them going hungry. Any economic system that leads to such suffering is deprived of humanity. The African National Congress is fundamentally opposed to the exploitative and heartless capitalist logic of the optimization of profits above the livelihood of our people. The capitalist economic system has failed to address issues of economic exploitation and equality. In fact, it is fundamentally a system that generates inequalities, deepens class, racial and gender divisions, and pits us against each other as it thrives on exploitation. And during these harsh economic conditions, we call upon all employers in the country to be sensitive to the plight of workers and to avoid retrenchments at every cost. We once more, as the ANC, wish to emphasize that we have agreed with a restructured SAA with minimum job losses. As we are an interventionist and developmental state, we call upon all employers to address the challenges of inequality, poverty, and hunger. We similarly call on the management of SABC to avoid job losses and to ensure constructive engagement with the unions. The ANC, as a progressive, pro-poor, non-racial and non-sexist liberation movement, joined the South African Communist Party in their call that all workers must unite in order to resist retrenchments and any massive job losses. And in this regard, we concur with Comrade G.S. Blayton Nzimande that all progressive trade union federations should put aside whatever differences they have and form a united solidarity front to mobilize all workers against retrenchment. Gross inequalities, poverty, and divisions of class and gender exploitation had been for far too long part of our society, but the serious deepening of these divisions brought about by the coronavirus pandemic mean that our country is now at a crossroad. Either we are going to plunge down a terrible ravine of fast increasing poverty and exploitation, where hunger and desperation will become the norm, or we are going to regain our revolutionary heart and humanity and make sure that the legitimate needs of our people are addressed through fundamental economic transformation and empowerment. We urgently need a far more caring and egalitarian state society, incomprehensively facing all the issues of exploitation and systematic violence in our communities. The ANC is duty-bound to again speak out in the strongest possible terms against racism and the scourge of gender-based violence. The abuse of women, and I'm talking to fathers and brothers and sisters, our brothers and boys, that the abuse of women and children has been a terrible and totally unacceptable prevailing presence in our communities for far too long. And the surge in the abuse, the killings, the rapes and wanton killings of women and children over the past couple of months have brought us to the breaking point where we must do everything to immediately bring it to an end. And I think enough is enough. We are calling upon men and boys and all South Africans to heed this call of ensuring that we protect and defend our girls, our women, and the ANC call on all men and boys to stand up against any form of gender-based violence and to make their voice heard loud and clear in opposition to the abuse of women and children. And lastly, in this regard, the ANC concurs with the excellent suggestion by Comrade Nzimande that the street committee system that was so successfully used, organizing our people to protect themselves and to fight the oppression and violence of apartheid state, should be activated to fight the scourge of gender-based violence. And in this Youth Month, the ANC calls on the youth of our country to join workers and indeed all South Africans to fight retrenchments, job losses, racism, gender-based violence, and every form of discrimination and exploitation. Now more than ever before, it is necessary that all of us as South Africans join hands to make sure that the democratic rights that we have gained through our blood, sweat, and tears during the liberation struggle are not eroded. Too many people have sacrificed their lives for our freedom. We have a revolutionary responsibility to close ranks and to defend the fruits of our people's revolution. No to racism, no to exploitation. Black Lives Matter, no to gender-based violence. Forward to a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magashule. Let's just start with the retrenchments. You call on companies to think about the livelihoods of those who will be not only out of pocket but out of work. What would you suggest? The Labour Minister has said that the retrenchments that we're seeing is just only the tip of the iceberg. I believe that there are close to 150 companies that have applied for business rescue, 37 of those during the COVID period alone. What is a rational way of dealing this? The fiscus cannot afford to bail out some of these companies.
Well, I think it's not just about the fiscus, and that's why we are making a plea. It's about the economy, it's about the people, it's about the livelihood of our people, it's about the working class. Remember, the African National Congress, it's a pro-poor organization. The African National Congress is an organization which is biased towards the working class. And therefore, we are just making a plea to everybody, especially government, state-owned enterprises, to actually then say these things cannot actually happen during this COVID-19 when our people are facing such hardships. And we are actually saying try and be reasonable, because government is also assisting the same companies which are actually in trouble. And therefore, the companies can't continue to retrench whilst they are also assisted.
The things that you were saying is that you're calling on the youth to stand by workers during this tough time. And some of your critics would have said, had your policy directives been more inclusive, or at least ensured that the youth are catered for in such situations, that we wouldn't necessarily have this problem. With these retrenchments, we're seeing that young people are going to be disproportionately affected by this. So what would you then suggest at a policy level? Some have even said maybe consider a greater relationship between financial policies of the ANC, monetary policy at least.
Well, remember, our policies are very clear in terms of the economy. We believe in the mixed economy, and we have all the time, even before COVID, emphasized the fact that many young people are actually unemployed. They are graduates, they are sitting at home, and we have actually emphasized the fact that we need to focus on young people, on rural people, on women, and ensure that township enterprises and rural enterprises, small and medium enterprises are actually empowered. But with the conditions under COVID, I think we are facing more challenges, and that's why as South Africans we need to unite, we need to come together. Rather than retrench, we need to come with many other different solutions to address the plight of our people. Otherwise, already you can see that hunger is a serious problem in South Africa, and we are one of the unequal societies in the world.
The President, during his question and answer session in Parliament, spoke about SOEs and being a possible tool of reigniting the economy. And opposition parties are asking you how you're going to do that. Does that mean that we'll see possibly further bailouts of some of these SOEs? He also spoke about zero-based budgeting. How are you going to achieve that? Because you have to start from zero.
Well, we may not have to start from zero. We may actually take the option, like we have said in terms of SAA, we are not going the way of liquidating SAA. We must restructure and ensure that we don't have a lot of job shedding. Minimum job losses is what we're actually talking about. And we said this SOEs must be run professionally. This SOEs must also be developmental in its nature, because I think that was the purpose even during apartheid why SOEs were actually established. They had a developmental nature, and I think as a developmental state, we should not just think about the finances, not then to think about the finances, but let's not forget that we are a developmental state which must also address certain needs of our people.
And Treasury warns us that we're possibly looking at a situation where unemployment could reach about 40%. So what's new that you're going to bring to the table?
Well, working together with all South Africans, working together with trade unions, working together with employers, and working together with government is the only solution. And working and ensuring that our people think out of the box and become innovative in whatever they do, young people, I think this is the only thing we can actually do. And we have survived all the battles, and I'm sure we can go through this period.
I want to move on to other issues, but I need to point this out, Mr. Magashule, that you as the ANC government have also faced a lot of criticism in the handling of this lockdown, for instance, that the personal care industry, that they had to lobby government, that a lot of them have been brought down to their knees because of having been shut out, that you could have at least opened up some of those industries sooner. And I understand the public health concern. the tourism industry. And if we're talking about women, we're talking about youth, these are the demographics that are most affected by some of this. So do you think that you could have done things differently as the ANC government?
I think the ANC government has been very consultative, it has been engaging, it has been basing its decision on scientific research. And the fact that we even ensured that we locked down the country early, I think we have saved the lives of so many South Africans. You can see even those countries which are opening now, after they've actually closed down, they are actually going back to other different higher levels because this pandemic is a serious challenge. And I think the way government has actually acted, it can't act like any other political party. It's a very responsible government, and I think up to so far, the ANC government has done actually well, and the people of South Africa has actually heeded the call of government.
So I need to go to other issues that have to deal with our constitutional democracy, the possibility, even the cause for our local government elections to be rescheduled, so to speak. Are you going to see yourselves working with the EFF in order to achieve this? Because it does require a constitutional change.
Well, as the governing party and as people who are very responsible, the leaders of the society, our position has always been to work with any party which is actually working for the benefit of all South Africans. So whatever is needed, and if we can all work together with different political parties, I'm sure during this time and moving forward into the future, because we don't know when and how and what is actually going to happen. But we can predict, and I'm sure we will definitely work, whether it's EFF and any other political party will do so.
Bring your attention to the visuals that we're showing our viewers, that of FW de Klerk. We mentioned at the beginning of this interview that a talk that he was going to give in the United States, that the invitation has been revoked, especially on the basis of the role that he played in South Africa's apartheid government. What is the ANC's reaction to this? Do you also welcome the decision as those that had lobbied that he be removed from the speaking engagement?
Well, if the world thinks so, we know what apartheid did to South Africa. We have passed that era. But if the world believes so, I think it will be wrong to project somebody who actually played an important role during apartheid days as a hero.
It's interesting that you should say that, Mr. Magashule, because we know that the last regular State of the Nation address, there was quite a lot of outrage regarding the presence of Mr. de Klerk. He was invited like all other former presidents, and this is what was said by the speaker, that his presence there was justified. But we're talking about issues of social change here, of race that you mentioned earlier on, that they would not be tolerated, the levels of discrimination. Does he have a place to speak about some of these issues? Should we review him, his relevance in this country in line with these issues?
Well, I think he has played his role during the days of apartheid, and as we went to a transitional period, and I'm sure it's time for him to just stay home and relax.
I need to then ask just a final question then, Mr. Magashule. We spoke about gender-based violence, we spoke about the economy. I now need to ask you just about Mike Mokoena, somebody that you knew very well, and his passing. Any words of comfort to his family or to the nation that you feel he should be paid tribute to?
Well, I'm very happy that the provincial government, having requested President Ramaphosa to give Comrade Mike Mokoena a nice send-off in terms of his provincial funeral. It has been granted, and Mike Mokoena has played an important role not only in the Free State in terms of football. He has been an active member of society, active member of the African National Congress, and I think we have actually sent a message of condolences to his team, to his family, to PSL, and we want to salute him, and we want to say as the African National Congress, long live the spirit of Mike Mokoena, long live.
And with regards to a final question, Mr. Magashule, the Public Protector's report on the asbestos tender in the Free State, while you were still Premier, the Public Protector seems to be of the fact that you knew that the tender was irregular and yet you still allowed it to go ahead. Any comment on that?
Maybe you must read the Public Protector's report so that you don't distort it. There is no way, anyway, the office of the Premier or myself will be closer to anything in terms of government departments.
I will read what she was saying in that report. Ace Magashule knew about the court case because all litigation involving government must go through the Premier's office. The payments being made were misappropriated and allegedly ended up in the back pockets of Ace's powerful friends.
Well, I don't know what report you are reading. There is no way I've been anywhere closer to whatever has happened in any department in the province.
So as a political head of the province at the time, do you contend that you knew nothing about it, that it did not come before your desk, and you were not derelict in your duty?
As a political head, I did not derelict my duty because the department is headed by an executive authority called the MEC. And whatever wrong has actually happened will be dealt with at any level.
So you were not aware of, as was said, the proven fact that the contract entered into by the Department of Human Settlements and Blackhead Consulting Diamond was illegal?
I have never gone through any contract which is a departmental issue.
Speaking to us, Mr. Magashule, the ANC's Secretary General, speaking to us on various issues, including the state of the economy, retrenchments, gender-based violence, and the need for unity. That is what we had on the political front.